Hey, I'm back here on the boat again, another guitar video. And what I'm going to show you is how I get this natural faux binding effect. Now, this needs a little bit refined. I've got a little touch-up things to do here and there, but then this is ready for my finish, which I'll do a true oil finish, which won't be in this video. I'll do a true oil finish video maybe separately from it. But basically just the process of how I go about getting this negative space natural binding effect. There'll be links in the bottom to the materials that I used and everything like that. This is the second one I've done. The first one I made a 30-inch baritone for a buddy of mine. Was experimenting with the natural binding technique, learned a couple things, tried to apply those here. I've still got room to improve, but it's not really that crazy difficult to get it at least to the point where I can get it. It's just a couple little tricks that I picked up online. So this will be mostly fast forward of just the entire process of how I got from basically the body blank to this point, and I'll just chime in whenever something needs to be said. Here you go. Alright, the first thing I do is take this pinstriping tape and just kind of mask around the outer edges of where the binding is going to be. I do it on the front and on the side, and I leave just what I'm going to keep the natural wood color. Now this stuff here is just typical pinstripe tape that I got at AutoZone, I believe. And I just kind of traced a little faint line where I wanted this to be. You can kind of see it there a little bit almost, so that I could follow that. And then on the side, whenever I switch over to the side, what I do is follow where the cap goes, because this is a F-hole body. There's actually a piece of wood across the top that forms the cap above the cavities. So that's the guide that I use for that. If I didn't have that, then I'd probably etch a small little line around the F-hole. I also, you can probably see there really faintly, kind of etched a line around it. I'm just following that. I'm just doing my best to mask it off. The F-hole never comes out quite as well as the binding on the sides. Trying to get better at it, but really you just kind of, you have to later on scrape all this again, so it's just kind of trying to lock in how you want your binding to look at this point. Alright, then I take the tape, just regular blue painter's tape, and I tape up everything that's not going to be natural. On this particular guitar, I kind of skipped doing this across the back, thinking it was going to be extra work, and that ended up being a bad idea. So basically, at this step, what you should do is absolutely anything that you don't want to stay a natural wood color at the finished product, just tape over it with this stuff. Now here I am on the side doing the same thing that I just did to the front. Like I said, I'm just following a line from this cap. Alright, so this here is wood grain filler, not to be confused with just regular wood filler, but this is what you need to use to, whenever you're staining and finishing open pore woods. This here is a northern ash, I believe, so it's got a really open grain. Normally you'd mix this with your stain that you're going to be putting onto the finish. it's my first layer on the natural binding because it kind of closes the, I guess, the grain or pores of the wood from accepting color a little bit. Oops, dropped the camera there. There I am. Whoops. It's kind of hard filming in this little tiny room in the boat. Anyway, I just get a brush and put this wood grain filler on pretty thick. Like I said, at this point I had not taped up the back of the guitar, so some of this stuff ran down to the back, and once this touches the wood grain, it does not want to take stain. That's the whole idea of kind of masking off everything else and then kind of giving the binding area and resistance to taking color. So by the fact that I let it fall down to the back means that it gives me some trouble later on. But here you can just see putting on liberal amounts. I think I did a couple layers of this. Alright, now I'm doing the sanding sealer. I did probably 3 or 4 layers of this stuff. I put this over the top, and it really, really helps keep the stain from going in. I think this actually might be what leaked around to the back and really messed me up later. I ended up, after the first layer of this, realizing that I had messed up, because this is a lot watery, a lot more watery. This is a lot more watery than that wood grain filler was. The wood grain filler wasn't really the issue, it was this sanding sealer. But I put a few layers of that on, and then you can see here that it starts to get this kind of finished look. It's just kind of watertight, sealed kind of deal. Alright, then just for a little bit extra, I put one single layer of True Oil over the top of my layers of sanding sealer, just to kind of give it a little bit more resistance. You don't want to do too much because this is all going to get scraped off again before you actually start the real finishing process. But this is just to keep that part that's going to stay natural as resistant to taking any of the stain color as possible. Alright, now it's time to remove all of the tape and all of the pinstriping. Kind of see how the wood that's been treated is a different color. See it a lot better here. There, now you can see exactly where the binding is going to be. The wood that's been treated is a little bit darker. Alright, I use naphtha a lot on my in-between cleaning. People use different things. Some people use mineral spirits. I just find naphtha to be pretty handy for me. I'm going to clean it all up and get it ready for the next process, which is putting the undercoat. Now, for what I like to do is get the deep grain of the ash to be black. You could do, and I have done this with black stain, and you just put the black stain on and then sand it back. I've kind of started to use this charred wood accelerator. I like the look of it. You just put it on. I wipe it off almost immediately, and it gives you this kind of charcoal black effect. Now the end grain takes this way better, like the sides, than the back. I kind of like that. I like it being darker on the sides. If you didn't want that, then you'd have to figure out a different way. Here you can see those spots where the sanding sealer dripped around and left those spots on the back, and I ended up having to sand those back down quite a bit. It was a pain in the butt. But here you just got the charred wood. The deep grain is black. And I don't know if I filmed it or not, but I took this away and sanded it down to where a whole lot of the lighter black goes away. Then you just keep that deep grain. Yeah, this is a bit of me sanding. Spots on the back ended up requiring a lot of extra work just because I was too lazy to tape off the back. But here I sand it down, and I don't like it to be perfect. The kind of finishes I do are more of your rustic, kind of imperfect, handmade kind of look. So I just kind of pick spots. I leave it darker around the sides and just sand down the parts that I want to be less dark, have less of that deep grain. Here I'll even use the sanding machine a little bit just to get it level. Yeah, and this is me working on these spots that, I mean, that sanding sealer goes in pretty deep to that open grain wood, so it takes quite a bit of work. I had to get it taken down and then leveled out. Not ideal. Just tape up the whole guitar whenever you're getting ready to use the sanding sealer. And I'll clean it up with naphtha again. Like, by the time I'm done with the guitar body, I've probably wiped it down with naphtha 100 times. Now I'm going to get my first stain passes. For this part I just use the stain. I don't mix it with anything yet. That's just to kind of add a little bit of color to this black. For this guitar, the front, I'm not putting any of this stain on. This is espresso stain. The front is going to be totally different, so I put it on the sides and the back, and then I'll sand this back. Pretty much in the same way that I did that charred wood accelerator finish. It's just my first deep layer. It's a little dark, but you can see how the stark transition to this front is going to be, where the sides and back are darker and the front is light.
Alright, now it's time for the actual final stain pass. I use the wood grain filler again. This is just to close, like I said, that open grain of the wood. So I mix some of it with my stain for the back and sides, which is this espresso. I don't know what the proportion is supposed to be. I just kind of randomly eyeball it and then rub it in. And I'll do a few layers of this darker espresso on the back and the sides just to get it in there as much as I can. Cleaning up some of my drips from the back, and then give her a wipe down with naphtha all the way around. Now on the front, I do a little bit more of a subtle staining effect. Which is two different stains. For the center, I'll do a coral, and for the outer part, I do an aged wheat. These are both really subtle stains. They're not something that you're gonna like jump out at you, but once you add the oil finish, the true oil over the top at the end, you can start to see a lot more of these little subtle colors pulled out. This is what I used on that first one, the same exact concoction of the coral in the center, which I just make a circle, and then I do the outer part in the aged wheat, and then I'll wipe from the center out to do the fade into it. And like I said, once this gets wiped off, I mean, you don't really see it now, and it just kind of gives you a subtle effect of lightening to darkening. And then once you get several layers of oil finish, then little tiny differences in the colors pop. That's kind of the style that I like, is just the subtle. I like the grain, so I'm just trying to accent that. But you could do a straight dye of a solid color or some kind of crazy color if you want. This is just kind of the style that I work in. Alright, then you just get a razor, and by this point all of the natural binding areas have been gunked up with different stains and stuff on top of the sanding sealer and everything. So you just very carefully scrape away everything to get it back down to that bare wood. And some parts you have to give a little bit more attention than others. The F-hole is particularly difficult compared to the sides. The sides you can get, it's a lot easier to get you a straight line.
Alright, so here we have it. I still need to go in there with the razor and get a little bit closer of a straight line on that stuff. I need to clean up the inside of the F-hole, this area in here. But I think I did a little bit cleaner of a job than my first one. The first one turned out, honestly, as one of the prettier guitars I've done so far. Hopefully this one will be even better. So it's time to get some true oil on this, and that's my favorite part. So there'll be a video coming up on where this ends up after about 40 layers of true oil. Thanks for watching.